In life, you have two choices. You can build a lifestyle or you can live a bullshit life, but you can't do both. Welcome to the Freedom Lifestyle Experience, where we focus on building the lifestyle you want. And now here's your host, Michael Burns.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Freedom Lifestyle Experience. I'm your host, Mike Burns. It's been a couple of weeks, so missed being on the microphone and sharing with you guys. But hey, I was in Miami for the 10X Growth Con. It's the fourth one that I've been to. So I actually went to the first 10X Growth Con that they held, which is at the same place that they just had this one at, the Diplomat Hotel in Hollywood, Florida. Beautiful hotel, beautiful facility right on the beach. Just a really nice, cool spot to have a conference and set up shop at. So anyways, what I wanted to do, a lot of powerful speakers, and I just learned a lot and had a ton of takeaways. And I really just kind of wanted to go over my notes and share those with you guys and pass along the value that I had got. So I spent $5,000 on a premier ticket. I've actually bought this ticket a couple of years ago, and then they didn't have anything in 2020 because of COVID. And then last year in 2021, I chose not to go just because I wasn't going to deal with the mask bullshit and all that stuff. So anyways, had this ticket, flew down to Miami. It was an awesome event, and I just wanted to share the stuff that I learned with you guys. You know, Grant Cardone, he opened up with, he said, it's what you see, not what you hear, that inspires you. And I just thought that was really powerful. And he followed up with, I think he had spent a little over $8 million on that event is what he told us. But he said, the reason I have this conference and I bring these speakers to this stage, it's because people need to see an example of what success looks like. And success looks different, obviously, like my thing's lifestyle, right? So you have the different areas in your lifestyle that you're going to be successful in, whether it's successful in money, successful in relationships, successful in your home life, your health and fitness, your spiritual, successful just in all the material things and everything that you have to experience here in life. But that's what he's saying is, you guys are coming to this conference, you're investing money in yourself to come learn and to be exposed to new thoughts and ideas and information, but really it's not what you hear people talk about. And that's really what he's saying by that. It's what you see, not what you hear, that inspires you. And really just the idea of, I'm putting these speakers on this stage for you guys to see an example of what success looks like. So for those of you who don't know who Grant Cardone is, 10X is kind of his claim to fame, but he's one of the first mentors that I really took serious and went all in on. So I spent probably 2 or 3 years of my life only studying his material. And initially he started as a sales guy. So I've learned, my sales style is very similar to what he teaches. And then he's developed, and now he's like a big time real estate mogul. I think his portfolio is worth $4 billion with a B, and he's raised just under $1 billion crowdfunding just from Instagram and Facebook, not spending any money on ads. It's been pretty crazy to see what this guy's done the last 5 or 6 years. But anyway, so 10X, that's really 10X is what put him on the map. And the idea of 10X and what 10X means is essentially that it's going to take 10 times the effort that you think it's going to be successful and accomplish whatever it is you're wanting to do. So the amount of time, the effort, just the entire experience that you have going into something and what you're thinking it's going to be like, essentially he's saying it's going to require 10 times more of you to get where it is you want to go. And that's the philosophy of the 10X rule. But when I really heard that and comprehended it and really absorbed it and took it in and understand like this 10X thing is a lifestyle. And like, if I'm serious about my goals and my dreams and being successful in business and making money and just all the different things that I want to do, I got to take this shit serious. So 10X, Grant Cardone was my first mentor. And I really adopted this philosophy of 10X and just 10Xing everything in your life. To this day, I still use the 10X planner. But so that's who Grant Cardone is. This is the foundation thought process of why I am where I am and why I believe that I'll continue to be successful and get to where I want to go. And the work ethic is a cornerstone of that. Like another thing that he had said when he was opening the conference is big think, big actions, and never fucking quit. Become the example. Be a shining light. Wake up the artist in you. Those who will hold you back ain't welcome. If you don't quit, you will figure it out. It means more when they see you do it instead of talk about it. So I'm literally reading you guys my notes, as I'm looking at my first page of notes here. So what I wanted to do is just, like I said, share with you guys what I learned. So there was a number of good speakers, but this guy, Cardone, opened up with Trump. Donald Trump came and was like the opening. He wasn't really speaking. He was more of an interview style, but no one knew he was coming. And, when you're going into the event, they always have security, but this time going into the event, security was like no joke. You couldn't have bags, basically bigger than like a little hand purse bag, and metal detectors, wanding people down. And I just, kind of thought, well, Cardone's, dude's a billionaire now, security's just tighter, as these events get bigger and stuff, because I've been around since the first one. So watching the security piece has definitely changed. So didn't think a whole lot of it. And I even saw, I was seeing guys with Department of Homeland Security badges on. And I was just like, oh yeah, these guys are probably running security as a side job, side gig, didn't even think about it. So, so they're doing the opening stuff, and Cardone comes up and he starts hyping the crowd and talking about, who he's going to bring out first. And then when he's, halfway through talking about, his rap sheet and stuff, and then he mentions, one of the hit TV shows, and talking about him being a real estate guy. And then when he says 45th president of the United States, the fucking energy in this room erupted. You're at a business conference, people who you're really trying to 10x their life, and business owners and people who are working hard and doing sales and all that shit. So you can imagine they're probably a little bit more leaning to the center, right, more conservative work ethic base. So anyways, it was really cool to just feel the energy in that room. But when Trump's coming up, I imagine it's probably what it was like at a rally. He's playing his song that he walks out to all the time. But I was probably 100 feet away from this guy, and just the presence that this dude has, whether you like Trump or you hate Trump, he's the best marketer in the world. He has the largest brand in the world. And the presence that this dude has when he walks into a room or onto stage was just really cool to witness. I don't really know how to put it into words, but the energy there and just experiencing his presence and just how excited everyone was really cool. But some of the stuff that Trump talked about he's Donald Trump, right? He's going to talk a little shit. He threw a couple shots in there at Biden, which the crowd appreciated, to say the least. But they really wanted to keep it about success and real estate and business related. And one thing that I thought was cool with Trump that Cardone had said afterwards, this is like probably the sixth 10X Growth Con, and Cardone, he's had all sorts of different speakers, or some people don't speak, they'll come and they'll do interview style. But one thing that he pointed out about Trump that I thought was cool is, and I've noticed this in Arte Syndicate as well, when Andy and Ed bring on like Peyton Manning or Joe Montana, Steve Wozniak, these Mr. Wonderful from Shark Guy, Rob Dyrdek, we've had all these different guys come, and I've seen the best of the best speak, and just, high level people be interviewed. But a lot of these guys, like Peyton Manning, for example, there was only a certain list of questions that could be asked, and like they have to be asked in a certain order. Or a lot of these people who are going to be interviewed, they want the list of questions well ahead of time, and what order they're going to be in, what kind of crowd they're speaking to, all of that shit. And I thought it was cool that Cardone said, I want everyone here to know that none of that was with Trump. So he literally, it was like just winging, off the cuff. And I just think that's cool. So anyways, some of the stuff that he had talked about, I'm a real estate guy. A lot of you guys listening to me are probably real estate too. But in good locations and good areas, real estate always goes up. That was one of the things that he said. And Trump feels like, and one thing that he said and what he's looked for in all of his deals and what he feels has made him wealthy. And if you look at his portfolio, he has some of the finest real estate in the world, really. And just talking about how it always comes down to location. Another thing he said that I've picked up on, and I've read this in his books too, but he says you have to love what you do. If you don't love it, you probably won't be successful. And really just speaking about, and this kind of goes back to the idea of 10X and just everything that it takes to be successful, and just the grind and the amount of just, whippings you got to take, and what that journey looks like. It's especially to get to a level that Grant Cardone is on or Donald Trump is on. He's like, there's just no way you're ever going to make it if you don't absolutely love what you do. Something else that Trump said that really stuck with me is you learn a lot about yourself in tough times. One thing you have to learn about yourself is, can you take it? And, I've shared some of my tough struggles with you guys earlier in the show. If you've read Art of the Deal, that's probably one of the best books that I've read business-wise that Trump wrote. He talks about some of these different deals and going through bankruptcies and a casino's not working out and just a down market and all this stuff. But you learn a lot about yourself in tough times. And that's just the truth. Like when things are easy and they're good, they're easy and they're good. But you really see someone when you hit tough times. And for me, when I go through tough times, that's actually like been the biggest blessings and gifts in my life, because number one, I find out, like he said, can you take it? What are you made of? But also when you get through on the other side, the amount of lessons that come from tough times, have always been my biggest lessons in life. So I really connected with that. And the last thing I wanted to share with Trump is talking about his brand. Obviously Trump truly is the biggest brand in the world. Whether you love him or you hate him, fucking everybody knows who this guy is. But he shared a really interesting story about Cardone had asked him, at what point did Trump become a household name, or at what point did you know Trump was going to be a household name? And when he built Trump Tower, some of you guys might be familiar with, that's his flagship building in downtown New York or Manhattan, wherever it's at. But when he was putting that deals together, he actually bought the Tiffany's building. Tiffany's like the world-renowned jewelry store. So Trump was making a deal to buy the Tiffany building and then securing the air rights above it. So anyways, this Tiffany building is like a prime location. It's a very famous building. So when he bought that building, he, was basically thinking he was going to incorporate the Tiffany name in the building. And he was sitting there talking to a guy, asking him what he should call it. And he said something along the lines of, well, your name's not Tiffany, your name's Trump. So if you're going to call it Tiffany's building or Tiffany Plaza or whatever, you need to change your name to Tiffany's. So that's when he decided to call it Trump Plaza or whatever it's called, Trump Tower. It's called Trump Tower. But I just thought that was kind of interesting, and Trump really touched on, for the arrogant guy that he is, it was cool to hear him say this. But he said he felt very self-conscious putting the name Trump Tower on the building, because he said he didn't have a brand at that time. And this is another major lesson that I learned with marketing. He said he put his name on it and grew into the brand. So he put Trump on the building and he didn't have a brand then, but he put his name on it and then he grew into the brand. And then as, things progressed, and he said, once he did that, it gave him this confidence. But then he truly started believing that, Trump believed that he had the best brand in the world. And that's how he developed and built the Trump brand that literally everybody in the world knows today. So the second speaker was Elena Cardone. That's Grant's wife. And I've seen her speak a number of times, 6 or 8 times at least, between the different 10Xs and events that I've been to. But one thing that she said that I wrote down, really, I only wrote 2 things down for her, and this is so crucial and so important. And again, so Elena, she plays the wife, she's Grant's wife, and she's very involved in the back end of the business, but really kind of creating the home and all of that stuff and supporting Grant. But she said the greatest form of love is helping and supporting someone achieve their goals and dreams. Another thing she said that really stuck to me, and for the people in relationships out there, really listen to this because it really hit me. So the greatest form of love is helping and supporting someone achieve their goals and dreams. And then she followed up later in her talk with, when you go through hard times, you have each other's back. And that's what true partners do. When you go through hard times, you have each other's back. And that's, it's important. And really, it's not only a romantic relationship. Maybe it's a business partner. Maybe it's the way that you show up, like just relationships in general, whether it's romantic, family, friend, whatever it is. Like when you're going through a hard time and you have each other's back, that's when someone's there for you. Just like, Trump was saying earlier, like you find out a lot about yourself in the hard times. Like when it's easy and it's good, like it's easy and it's good. But in the hard times, just like Trump was saying, you find out who you are. Well, Elena is sitting here saying when you go through the hard times, you have each other's back. So the next speaker that came was Tillman Fertitta. So he owns like 600 restaurants. He's also the owner of the Houston Rockets basketball team. I guess he's worth like $12 billion. Anyway, so he came and spoke, and he didn't speak. It was more interview style, but it was really interesting to hear, what a guy who's been in business for 30 years and is worth $12 billion and just his story and his input and stuff. And by the way, that he was in Miami on his 252-foot yacht and had flown to the Fort Lauderdale airport on the helicopter that goes on the yacht. So it was just, I mean, that's just a whole nother level. So all of this shit, everything's levels upon levels. But a couple of things, and I'm just kind of reading through my notes, but the first thing that he said that I wrote down was it's all about revenue. He is always focused on the top line. Everything is about revenue. Another important thing that he said, and this is just in terms of communicating with people, but also when you're from a leadership perspective, he said, God gave everyone a talent. You must find it. Another thing that he said is he's worth so much money because he's never sold anything. He's a holder, not a seller. My first million was the hardest. Keep money in your business to grow it. There's nothing like watching your business grow. One of the key things that stuck out to me for Tillman is he was talking about when COVID happened, and when COVID came out early, I guess he got, some criticism because he laid a bunch of people off, but he was sitting there talking about the behind the scenes strategizing and how he had seen multiple market cycles at that time. And like I said, he's got 600 restaurants, bunch of shit going on. Obviously, restaurants got closed down in COVID, but so Tillman doesn't have any partners. He owns, like, he is the guy. He doesn't have investors. He doesn't have partners. Like, it's his deal. He has debt and stuff like that, but he owns all of his shit because he wants to be in total control of everything he has going on. So when COVID was coming down and everything was shutting down, he was looking at their cash reserve and just their financial position and, trying to basically identify where they're at and how much money they would be able to float. Another thing that he said in business is you got to understand that the bills that you're paying today, like the invoices that you're paying today, the payroll that you're paying today, those are 30 days ago's bills. So he's like, we're already a month behind the gun. And he was saying that his payroll coming up was $100 million. So I think that his payroll either every 2 weeks or every month is $100 million. Think about that. So what he said that he did when COVID was coming down is he went to his private investors and he borrowed $300 million at 12% interest. And he said, basically, no one really quite comprehend why he would do that because banks are giving money out between 3 and 4% at that time. And just explaining this whole thing was a big strategy deal for me. And I borrow a ton of money with my real estate deals and I'm paying 10 and 12% to our investors. And that's considered hard money rates. So for this dude to go out and borrow $300 million at 12% interest, so he pulled that money and it just sat there, liquid cash, like in a war chest, and he's paying 12% interest on that. But the reason he said he didn't go to the banks is because he said he didn't want the banks to be his partners. Once you take money from the banks and shit goes sideways, they'll come in and just foreclose on you and take all your shit and you lose control versus when he's got these private investor money, they're trusting him with his money and they're going to do any and everything they can to make sure he's successful and gets through it. So that was just a really interesting thing. And the other thing that he said is with the private money, he got it now. Like it was immediately, he had the money immediately. And the reason he was able to borrow that kind of money is because he's got so much equity in his business. And that was one thing he talked about is keep your money in your business, keep investing in your business, and you'll continue to grow equity in your business. And then also your business is going to spit off cash flow. So anyways, he has this $300 million and his thought process behind that was he didn't want to be in partnership with the bank. He also said, if stuff got real bad real quick, the banks are going to quit lending money. And so if he's going through a process of borrowing $300 million, they're going to shut that down. And then he also said at that point in time, nobody would be able to get money or capital. So he felt that he positioned himself and he knew that with this $300 million, basically he projected it out and he said, I would be able to go, if every restaurant stays closed, he would be able to make it until like the end of December 2021, I think he said. And this was the whole strategy behind it. And this was just a concept that stuck out to me and why this guy's a fucking billionaire. He said, I knew if I could just make it through this thing and outlast everybody, I would then gobble everyone up and I'll quadruple in size. So basically he was willing to take $300 million at 12%. That's how committed he was. And he took that alone against the equity in his business. And he was that committed to making sure he could ride out the hard times, because if he could get through the hard times, on the other side of that, there would be no competition and he would literally just absorb everything. And he's like, I'd go from being worth 10 billion to 50 or 60 billion pretty quick. And I just thought that was a boss move. So that was one of the biggest things I got from him. Another thing he said, and you hear a lot of successful guys say this, I'm not that smart. I just know what I know. So, what he means by that is he just focuses on what he's good at and he does what he knows and he hires everything else. Save capital for the downturn. That is where he got rich. So, again, like, especially right now for you real estate guys, it's like it's only a matter of time before the bottom falls out on this market. It can't keep running forever. So, what I'm doing is getting access to credit lines and getting access to cash. And I'm just continuing to turn our cash over and trying to build this war chest. So when the downturn does happen, we can go in and swoop stuff up and buy shit on sale. And that's really where you're going to get rich. And if you hear, any real estate guy or really anyone in business, like that's major opportunities where you can double up, triple up, and really get rich or wealthy. One other thing that he said, you need to look at worst case scenario in the deal. If you can handle that, then you should do the deal. So I'll say that again. He's talking about when you're analyzing a deal. He's basically saying when you're underwriting a deal or you're looking at a deal, you need to look at the absolute worst case scenario and then look at yourself in the mirror and be honest with yourself. And if you can handle that worst case scenario, you know that you can handle that, or the business can support itself or whatever it is, you just feel that that's a blow in a period of time that you can absorb and make it through, then you should do the deal. But if you don't, then don't do the deal. And it's really basic, but it's powerful information. So anyways, that's what I got from a guy that's worth $12 billion. So I love the business stuff, and it's cool to hear, Trump speak. It's really cool to hear Tillman Fertitta speak. So that was day one. So day two, a guy named T.D. Jakes came and spoke. I had no idea who he was. When they were introducing him, they were, I guess he made movies and he's been in the music business and he's got all this shit going on. And I'm like, oh, it's 50 Cent. Fuck, cool. We're going to have 50 Cent talk. And then they brought up this T.D. Jakes guy. And he wasn't talking about business. He's a pastor. He's basically a pastor, runs a big church. He does a bunch of other shit. But this guy came in and just spoke to everybody's soul and the energy that was in the room. And just, again, when Cardone was talking about it's not what you say, but it's what people see, and it's how you make them feel. And this guy just came in and spoke straight to my soul. And I've got a bunch of notes, so I'm just going to kind of read through these with you guys. So, be patient with me on that. But he opened up with, you are on the verge of exploding into your destiny. And a lot of things that he talked about, he was talking about potential, and, I really connect with that because, staying loyal to your potential is a big deal to me. Another thing that he really, really touched on a lot is the human-to-human connection and your ability to communicate. Right here, he says, if you don't communicate effectively, you won't accomplish your goals. Another thing that he said that I really connect with, because you guys listen to me, this is how I roll with relationships, but everything is about relationships. It doesn't matter where you start, but where you finish. I like being myself. I'm cool with me. And it's such a basic thing, but the relationship that you have with yourself is the beginning of your entire experience with everything you're doing in life. Like if you're not feeling good about yourself or confident about yourself or proud of yourself, or, if you're not vibing with yourself, you're not going to be a good negotiator in deals. You're not going to be a good wife or husband or boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever. You're not going to be a good leader. You're not going to be leading by example. So just I'm cool with me and I like being myself. That just really set in with me. And I think that's important. Everybody's so worried about what everyone else thinks. It's like, what do you think about you? What do you think about yourself? Let's start there, because that's really the only thing that matters, because no matter where you go, guess who you're going with? You're going with yourself. So I really like that. Tell people who you are, not what you got and what you know. Tell people who you are, not what you have and what you know. Like, who are you? It's not about the things that you have, or I'm not Mike Burns who drives a Ferrari and has a nice home and wears cool watches and is a real estate guy. I'm Mike Burns, who's a guy that leads by example, and I'm a generous individual, and I show up in my relationships for people, and I want them to know that I love them, I support them, and I encourage them. That's who I am, not what I have. The easiest kid to parent is the one most like you, because you understand them better. Don't try to change and mold them. Support and grow who they are naturally. Obviously, if you're a parent, I don't have any kids, that applies to that. But really, if you just look at that with people in general, Don't try to change and mold them. Support and grow who they are naturally. Be as good on the inside as you want to be on the outside. And I've talked about this on the show earlier. I think that we're chasing these external things, whether they're goals, relationships, material things, whatever they are. We're chasing these things because it's not about the actual thing. It's about how we think we're going to feel when we have that thing. So it's not about making $1 million. It's about when I make $1 million, I'm going to feel accomplished and successful and significant. It's not about the marriage or the relationship, the boyfriend or the girlfriend. It's about if I'm in this relationship and I'm with someone, then I'm going to feel love, and then I'm going to feel loved, and I'm going to feel accepted, and I'm going to feel supported, and I'm not going to feel alone. So it's not about the external thing. It's really about us. And that really, I connected with that a lot. And that's a big piece that I've been working on in my life the last 2.5, 3 years, is a spiritual piece. Because, for the longest time, it's like, oh, well, when I'm making money, then everything will be okay. Well, then I made 200 grand in a month. My wife hadn't been home in a week, and everything was not okay. It was not all good. And that was a real big eye opener for me. So when he said this, it just reinforced that. So guys, like, whatever it is you think you want, it's not the thing that you want. It's the way that you think that thing is going to make you feel. Another thing he said here, and it also ties into what Trump said that I didn't cover earlier, but Trump was talking about when you're in business and everything, but he was essentially saying you have to make sure that the business that you're in or the vehicle that you're in has the capability of going to the place that you want to be. So like if you're driving a Honda Civic and you want to drive 150 miles an hour, 200 miles an hour, that's probably not going to get you there. If you want to be a millionaire, selling ice cream on the side of the road is probably not going to get you there. And something that TD Jake said, he said, what you are fishing for may not be in the lake you are in. So what you're fishing for may not be in the lake that you're in. And I think that's just really identifying like, okay, I know what I want and where I'm going, but where am I at currently? And until you work that backwards and you find out and you're real with yourself and honest yourself, like, where am I today? Until you really see where you are today, you can't come up with that plan that's going to get you from where you are today to where it is you want to be. So what you're fishing for may not be in the lake that you're in. Like I said, he spoke a lot about communication. And I'm sorry this podcast isn't as smooth flowing. I'm literally just reading through my notes and sharing with you guys what I learned, just reading word for word what I wrote down and giving you my thoughts on it. But when it comes to communication, this guy just really laid it out and helped me significantly too. But he says communication is the currency of every relationship. If the world stops talking, we'll all go to hell, is what he said. But basically he's saying don't stop talking. Like when we stop talking, we stop communicating. And when we stop communicating, that's when everything starts to die. The power of life and death is in your mouth. You send a signal to people that they are either in or out. So really just touching on communication and how it's such a major thing in relationships. And we're sending signals to people that they're in or they're out, like they're accepted or they're not, based on the words that we're using and the body language that we're using. And really, when all communication stops, that's when everything is going to stop, and that's when everything is going to die. And if you look at our society that's going on right now, it's like whether you think you're left or right or, whatever opposing shit that's going on right now, it's like we've stopped talking, we've stopped communicating. It's just like I'm right, they're wrong. And then we just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper, and this division becomes larger and larger and larger. And this gap that we're trying to bridge between us and the people that have different views from us is just getting larger and larger. And that's because when communication stops, everything starts to die. And that's where we're at right now. So whether it's a business relationship, a romantic relationship, whatever type of relationship it is, like communication is just so important. It's the currency of every relationship, is specifically what this guy said. And that really just hit me hard and stuck with me. Another thing he said was words create pictures, and if the picture isn't clear, they won't see it or understand. Your vision will not be seen. And this is really, especially you guys in business, you want to learn about business, build a team, you're building a vision, or anyone for any situation where you're in a leadership role or you're just trying to build a vision or share it. I'm going to read that again. Words create pictures, and if the picture isn't clear, they won't see it or understand. Your vision will not be seen. Pretty powerful stuff, going back to the communication stuff there. So that was the communication that you talked about, and then you touched about on business a little bit, but when your business becomes an answer, you won't have to advertise. I am somebody's answer. Go find the right problem and fix it. How can I help you? And really just coming from a place of service instead of like, hey, I'm trying to sell. Like when your business becomes an answer, you won't have to advertise. I am somebody's answer. Go find the right problem and fix it. How can I help you? And then another thing that he said, when you're speaking with someone, when you get me, you get everything I am connected to. I am an asset. I am a fixer. I am a builder. I can do the impossible. You want people around you who can accept change and growth. A few more things on communication, then I'll move on to the next one. But I just really, communication's a huge thing in my life and my business and relationships. And it's one thing that I'm always trying to get better at. So that's why I keep, talking on this communication stuff. And I saw a couple more things, but it's not my ability to speak, but my ability to listen. And that's really powerful. Not my ability to speak, but my ability to listen. When you stop listening, you can no longer speak. When you stop listening, you can no longer speak. So when you're not listening to somebody, or, if you're like me, you're listening. And this is one thing I've noticed that I've done that I try to get better at is a lot of us aren't listening to hear and understand. We're listening to respond. And there's a huge difference when you're listening to respond to something. You're listening, and then you have a thing that you're going to respond to or defend yourself or whatever it might be. Then you start formulating what your response is going to be. And now you're sitting here having a conversation with yourself about how you're going to respond to something that somebody said probably 10 seconds prior to that. So when you stop listening, you can no longer speak. But when you're listening to someone and you're trying to understand where they're coming from and what it is they're saying, then you can actually, instead of, reacting to that, you can respond and really understand what they're saying. But just going back to the how much this guy was honing in on communication and just how important it is. So I'm really trying to pass that along to you guys is, just everything that I got from the communication piece was a big deal. The language of your head and your heart need to be in alignment. When there is alignment, there is peace. So if what you got going on in your head and your mind is not in alignment with your heart, and your heart's not in it and you're not feeling it, that's a gas and a brake at the same time. So really being in alignment, and I talk about that in the lifestyle stuff, but you have to be in alignment. Your goals have to be in alignment with your core values, and then your actions have to fall in line with all of that. You need to be putting yourself in the right environment, and everything has to be in alignment. And then when everything is in alignment, then you're sending a clear signal out to the universe. And that's when shit's actually going to start happening and coming together for you. Remind people they are important and you believe in them. I think that's one of the single most important things we can do for the people, just really people in general. But everyone wants to feel loved and accepted and appreciated and that they matter. And that's something that I learned from Ed Milet, is the 6 human needs. But remind people that they are important and you believe in them. Whether this is like a leadership role or it's just having a small conversation with the girl at 7-Eleven while she's checking you out and you're buying a water or whatever, just reminding people that they're important or that they're noticed or that they're seen and that you believe in them. What you do is what inspires people. He also said that, and it's very similar to what Cardone opened the whole event with, is it's not what you say. People don't care about what you say, they care about what you do. And what you do is what inspires people. So be the example.
Hey guys, hope you enjoyed part 1 of this episode. It's just too good to limit to one show. Join us next week to hear the rest.
This is the podcastfactory.com.